Yeah, here we go. Wan Chung Hao. Hello, everybody. So, my jazz life is too long to tell everything there is to tell. So I just want to tell you a few little stories from my life, and then I want to talk about the lessons that are most important to me from the world of jazz. So my jazz life started when I was 11 years old. So when you're an American boy, and I grew up in Indiana, which is kind of in the center of the USA, not so far from Chicago. But when you're 11, just like in China, you start middle school. And part of middle school is you choose in America if you want to be in the choir, singing, or if you want to play in the band. And in those years, I thought the choir would be full of girls, and so I didn't want to be in the choir because I just like playing with boys. And now I'm really tired of playing with boys. I just like to hang out with the girls. But anyway, so I chose the band, and I wanted to be a drummer. So the first day I came and I said to the teacher, "Can I play drums?" A lot of boys want to play drums, right? The teacher told me, "I'm sorry, Kyle, we have too many drummers. You have to choose something else." So I went home and I asked my dad, who was a school teacher. I said, "Dad, they told me too many drummers. What should I play?" And he said, "Why don't you play the trumpet?" And I said, "Okay." That's how I became a trumpet player. The first thing that I loved about the trumpet was not how it sounded. I didn't really know so well what it sounded like. The first thing I loved about the trumpet was that it was shiny, very shiny. So I had a brand new silver trumpet, and when I remember, because I was an 11-year-old boy, I had little plastic cars that I played with that were the most expensive toys I owned. And now I have a silver trumpet. It looked like a piece of treasure. But after playing the trumpet for 1 year, I fell in love with the sound of the trumpet. And a weekend, we went to visit my uncle who lived in Washington, D.C., and he loved jazz music. And he asked me, "Hey, Kyle, so now you're playing trumpet. Who are you listening to?" He said, "Are you listening to Miles Davis?" And I said, "Miles who?" Because I didn't really know any jazz trumpet players. So based on what my uncle told me, I started listening to Miles Davis. And after a year of listening to Miles Davis, I loved Miles Davis, and I loved jazz music. And I knew at 12 years old that I wanted to be, for the rest of my life, a jazz trumpet player. So I thought that if I become really good, I will be rich and famous. Okay, so now I can tell you, 48 years later, I'm not so rich, I'm not so famous, but I'm a very happy jazz trumpet player. And actually, I wouldn't trade places with anybody for the life that I've been able to live through jazz music. So my teachers changed my life. My first teacher at middle school, it was her first year as a teacher, and she would give me all the lessons she could after school without any payment, just because she wanted to help me, and take me to concerts and feed my passion for music. So in those years, as I got into high school, and I started listening to more jazz music, I had to listen. These were the pre-internet days. Remember, those days existed. Cell phones didn't exist. The internet didn't exist. We listened to records, like that 1925 record. Those are the kind of things I listened to. So we listened to records. So when I was in high school, I would mow yards with an gasoline mower. It's a machine that you cut grass with. So I could mow a yard. My family had a mower that I could use, and I would mow the neighbor's yard, and they'd pay me $5 to mow their yard. Take me about 1 hour of pushing the mower. And once I had $5, I would get on my bicycle and I would ride a half an hour into the center of the city to the record store, and I would buy a new jazz record. And that's how I spent all my money. I didn't have really many girlfriends because they knew that I wasn't very interested in them. So I just spent a lot of time with the trumpet. So of course, you realize that when you hear a jazz musician, the secret life of any musician, it's not mostly this life we have on a stage, right? It's all that time we spend alone with our instruments. Thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. And usually we love practicing, but we get tired too. Sometimes we don't feel like it. In fact, that happened to me this afternoon. So I was going to do some more practicing that I was feeling so tired I didn't do. But if you hear someone that is on a stage playing jazz, there's someone that has found a way to get themselves alone with an instrument for a lot of time. So when I started college, I studied jazz music. And I met my wife in a music group when I was in college. By the time I met my wife, I understood how important it was to learn to enjoy being with girls. And so I really liked being with my wife. So I spent time with her away from the trumpet. Yeah, and she's still my wife. She teaches at Western Academy here in Beijing. And as a young married couple, I thought, the rich and famous part, I would be making a lot of money when I finished college. Well, I looked at how much money I was making, and I realized that we're not going to have a very good life if we're depending on what I make just playing the trumpet. So I went back to college again, and I got a graduate degree in education, and eventually I became a music professor. And that's when I discovered the joys of teaching jazz music. And because I had such wonderful teachers, they gifted me with a lot of beautiful things to share with my students. And so I've had the privilege of teaching. I lived for 14 years in Italy and played and taught all over Europe. I was also a professor in the United States. And one day, after I had moved back to the USA in 2012, because my 3 kids were getting ready to go to college, we moved back to the USA. I got an email from a teacher of mine. And this teacher asked me, "Hey, Kyle, could you be interested in teaching jazz in Beijing?" And my first thought was, Beijing? And I went to talk to my wife and see what she thought about this possibility. And I thought she would say to me, "Kyle, look, we've traveled enough. I'm tired. I just want to stay in the USA. I'm sorry, but because also we have to make this decision together." I thought that she would tell me, "Wow, that may be a great opportunity, but we can't do that." But she surprised me, and she let me know that she was ready for another adventure. And that year also, our children all 3 had left to go study at college. So 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to move here to Beijing. I didn't know, I was here by myself in the beginning. I didn't know any Chinese. I didn't have any friends. I remember wandering into the grocery store trying to buy an onion. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Am I supposed to weigh it first? So I just brought the onion to the cashier. But I found the Chinese people here in Beijing, they welcomed me. They were very friendly to me. And my life here has been a wonderful experience because of my relationships with Chinese friends and other friends from around the world that live here in Beijing. I'm so glad that my wife and I decided to come and live here in Beijing. And there's a very beautiful thing that's happening in Beijing right now. My wife and I live in Sanlitun, and right now there are six different places that I can walk to from my house where we play jazz. And that never before has happened in my life. And it's happened here in Beijing. And we have a beautiful community of musicians here, including the brothers that you see tonight from many countries. But another thing that I so much appreciate about jazz is the values that I've learned from jazz and the way that we treat people. And you may know this, but in the jazz tradition, we call each other brother and sister, right? So typically when I see one of these guys, I'll say, hey bro, what's happening? Yeah. Hey sister, what's happening? And it's a part of our tradition that we make space for one another because we value what every individual, their unique contribution to the world. So I'm very honored to have the opportunity to talk to you tonight. Thank you for coming. And I want to conclude by playing a short little song that's one of my favorite songs. It's by a pianist named Billy Strayhorn. And it has a lovely title. The song is called A Flower is a Lovesome Thing.